Oh,
There we are. All right, I see it. We are live. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Welcome to the Akari Press channel. Here on YouTube, we are streaming live across multiple platforms. We are streaming on Facebook. We're streaming on Twitch. We are streaming on Periscope. All at Akari Press, by the way, in case anybody is interested. Come one, come all. I have two very special guests, both of whom have been on this channel before. First, I would like to introduce John Celestri. I had a lot of fun with him last time. Let me just go over his storied career. Let's see some of my favorite stuff. The Star Wars Christmas special. This is the man that introduced us to Boba Fett. We've got Rock and Rule. Some of you may have seen that. He worked on Dragon's Lair 1 and 2, Space Ace, He-Man, She-Ra, Brave Star, X-Men Evolution. The list goes on and on and on. But John, welcome back. It is great to see you, my friend.
Thanks for having me in. Thanks.
Oh. Wow, I'm all hyped up now. Dang.
Okay. Well, let's do yours. Okay, so Joseph was here a few days ago. He is promoting his comic Slaughter Squad, which is on Indiegogo right now. And matter of fact, John has Ruff Sketch, and that is still on Indiegogo. I've got both of the links to their projects in the description. So the mods, if you would be so kind as to please throw those in. But let's go over Joseph. You've seen he's worked on a lot of stuff that I love, like say Rick and Morty, HBO's Animals. He's got credits on that. Brickleberry. There's a show on YouTube Red called Paranormal Action Squad. He worked on that.
Oh man, you found me on IMDb.
Oh yes, I did. And of course, the upcoming season 2 to Fox's Cosmos. You will see his work there as well when that comes out. But yeah, maybe if it's been in the can for a while, but he did work on it, and it's coming. So welcome, Joseph. Welcome back to the channel. It's good to see you as well. And Slaughter Squad, of course, looks like it's doing pretty well.
It's great to be back. What's up, chat?
All right, the chat is finally. Yeah. Let me see here. Let's see. Ghost like John the Legend. I love Dragon's Lair and Space Ace growing up. A big part of my childhood. Thanks. Well, all right.
Thank you.
There you go. It's always nice to meet a fan. But John, what I really want to ask you about is your groundbreaking work on Turbo Team. Please.
Let's put it this way. It was a flat tire for me. I mean,
it's like the most unintentionally hilarious thing I've ever seen.
Me and Joseph were watching clips of Turbo Team, and someone took like all the transformations from Turbo Team and put it into like a big 28 minute clip on YouTube, and you see him like he falls in a river, and then he turns back into it's like, because I guess it's hot and cold, the transformation. The whole thing was weird, and he got hot in the bed, and he turned into a car, and then he had to drive himself into the bathroom and get in and somehow, I don't know how the tires were able to make the knob turn so that the water would come on and hit him so that he would turn back into a human form.
Well, the tires would grip the road. I mean, whatever it was, I mean, those transformation scenes are like one giant LSD trip.
And I was like,
kind of like the Matrix. You can't be
his
told what it
teeth
is.
come out because his teeth kind of go. And then you see the headlight
grid and all that. Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Boom.
Oh. I had to tease John.
You.
I know you. But
when you're trying to describe it to me, it's like hard. I just like the Matrix. You can't be told what it is. You have to see it for yourself.
Yeah. But when he saw it was funny. I was just like, he was like. But I remember it was shows like that and Rubik's. I don't think you worked on Rubik's though, did you?
No. Let's see. I worked at the Patty Freeling during the '77 season on Baggy Pants and the Nitwits and
I saw you had Raggedy Ann and Strawberry Shortcake.
Raggedy Ann and Annie Tubby the Tuba.
Yeah,
You know,
a lot of stuff, man.
oh yeah, you go looking at the credits and it's there. I mean, you can't fake that anymore. People used to walk around and say, "I used to work on that. I used to work on that." Well, you know what? If you know, I think it's kind of hard to get your credit onto the internet on the official list, you know, without it showing up in the actual program. You know, the actual production on TV, you know. So I mean, you can't fake it anymore, you know.
Well, that's why I wanted to go back. So I kind of wanted to ask both of you. So, like, John, start with you. How did you break into the business? So, like, started, you know, like, how did you, or did you decide that you wanted to be just a fashion artist or something, and ended up in?
No. I wanted to be a comic book artist as a young kid, and but didn't. I'm self-taught. Okay,
Oh,
I'm
wow.
a self-taught artist, and everything. I finally discovered that after a lot of stuff going on, you know, going to college, university, and what have you. This is the late '60s, early '70s, and by the time I was about 22, 23, I discovered I enjoyed doing animation. I could draw that way, doing action poses, and that's how I discovered I had the knack to do it. I just went and just knocked on doors at you know, I took a 6-week course in once a week, one night a week at the School of Visual Arts in New York City, and that's the summer course. And I wound up getting a recommendation from my teacher there, who was an old Terry Toons artist from, you know, the days of the Mighty Mouse and, you know, Heckle and Jekyll and all that. He connected me with the people at the New York Institute of Technology out on Long Island, and they were doing Tubby the Tuba as an experimental feature for to learn or figure out what the problems were to create computer animation. That's where Photoshop started. That's where Ed Catmull was there, you know, on one side of the campus, and the traditional animators were on the other side. So that's a lot going on there during that time period. But I learned on the job to do animation, to do in-betweening, cleanup, and then, you know, an animation. And that's how I got my foot in the door. But that's in 1974, 75. And that's very different. I mean, there were only maybe about 350 people in the business in New York City, and maybe about 850 in California, which included all of the Disney Studio, Hanna-Barbera, Patty Freeling, and Filmation.
Well, so, I guess that was before they started shipping everything. Before they started shipping everything over to like South Korea to illustrate.
Well, they were already starting to send ink and paint. You know, the painting was being shipped already by by that time. Yes.
Really? Yeah. Okay. I thought that was something that happened in the last, like, say, 20 or so years now.
Oh no, it's been going on for 40 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that too, because outsourcing is it's like so out of control now. It's like it's completely hollowed out. The animation like industry is really tough. To find stable work.
Well, it was always that's been a. People think that this is a brand new thing. When I was there, and when we started out, I lucked out being able to go from one project to another. But in California, for the TV season, it was a foregone conclusion that unless you were working at Disney, it was basically a 6-month-a-year gig. So you would work, maybe at a studio for 6 months. And then hopefully you could pick up a commercial or something to get you going, to get you over. And then it was unemployment. So that's what it was like back then.
And it's basically the same now.
Yeah,
Hasn't changed.
yeah.
Well, Joseph, tell us how you got into business. So it's like, how did you get into business?
Me, it was kind of similar. I was into comics coming out of high school, and I didn't really have a plan or anything. I didn't know how I would break into it or anything. But some recruiter from the Art Institute came by my school and was like, "Hey, you should try animation." I was like, "Sure." And yeah, they gave me a tour and signed me up with some fat loans, and I was on my way. And then you know, I mean, that school that I went to, I think they got busted for like fraudulent loan practices, and I think they lost their accreditation. I don't think my degree is actually valid anymore. But I got into TV animation from they had like a job placement department, whatever. Like they hooked me up with my first job, and ever since then, I just started making connections, and it's like, jumping from studio to studio, trying to stay afloat.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because obviously animation is changing now. So you've got there's still, I find when I see shows that are doing 2D animation, they're kind of doing it as like a throwback. Everybody's doing like CGI, it's like, so does that make it harder for you guys to get work? Obviously, John, I know you've retired and everything, but was that starting to happen towards the end of your career? The CG animation, does that hurt you, or do they still need people that can draw before they do the computer stuff?
Well, from my way of answering, I got kicked out about year 2000, 2001, because what happened was that I was working, basically, feature work, and then everything started they started once Toy Story broke, and then everybody started to go, okay, that's the way it goes, and they would do crappy stories for 2D animation, and then and then complain that nobody wanted to go see them, but they would spend more time and effort on the stories for the CGI stuff. And so, of course, you're not going to, So at one point, the death knell was when DreamWorks, when Katzenberg said, "Hey, 2D is dead," and so, okay, and that was like about. Well, they were already screwing around with people in 2001. At one point, they started to, they were cutting down the Disney artists, their salaries in half. They were really getting them going. So I was, I basically, because I worked out of Cincinnati, because I was on staff with an animation studio in Los Angeles, permanent staff. And I did that gig for 10 years. It was a union gig for 10 years.
Nice.
I was living,
the union. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh
well,
yeah.
I guess they still have a union. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Are you part of that, Joseph?
I am in the guild.
Where?
But
it's. Where are you?
I'm in LA.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I left LA in 1986. 1986 to 1987, because I couldn't stand the traffic at that point. So, so I've been out of there for 21, 20, 30 years, whatever it is. But nice. Anyway, yeah. Well, I know Tom Cito. You know Tom? Okay. He used to be the union. He used to be the union president for 9 years, but that's in the 90s and what. There's a bunch of people that I know who are sort of still, in LA.
I've never once gone to a union meeting. I've heard stories, like people secondhand, and it just sounds like just a shit show. So I haven't bothered even like stepping foot in there. But I do have the card somewhere around here.
All right. Well, anyway, but it's the 2D animation. What they do today, I don't know. I'm sure there are a handful of people. Well, I know there are a handful of people, in LA who still do this. They've been gathered around, say, the Ken Duncan studio, and he's got all of the not leftovers. I'm saying the people who are still around who are capable of doing 2D animation, like Bruce Smith and Darley Brewster and a bunch of other people who do this. They did that the show, the dancing sequence in Mary Poppins Returns.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so they were doing that. They did that material, but they were called. They didn't get any credit. They got to say this as special effects, the Ken Duncan studio, except that they did all of that work. They were the ones responsible for probably most of the entertainment factor in the Mary Poppins Returns, and yet they didn't get very much credit for that. So, but as far as 2D, no, I haven't done anything like that except for my own work.
Well, that's actually where I wanted to lead because both of you have projects. So so let me pull this up. In fact, let me do some screen sharing because I want to show both of your projects while we've got everybody watching, and maybe some people will shower you with a few shekels. So
I see El Gargoyle in the chat stirring up trouble. I see you.
Okay. Let me see. Okay, so here's John. This is your project here, Rough Sketch and Animation and Comic Book Portfolio. And what led you to create this project here?
Well, I wanted to introduce myself to the comic book community, so that I can do my projects. So I figured, what would be a way of introducing myself is to say this is what I've done beforehand, and where I am, coming up to this point. So it's better than to just say, okay, well, I just did this and this and this, and so you can see my show, watch my new cartoons or my new comic books. But it's better to actually have a project that people can see my work. It's basically samples of drawings I did for productions of work from Star Wars Holiday Special with Boba Fett, Raggedy Ann, the Batman commercials, the Star Wars, as I said, Star Wars Holiday Special, the Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, and giving a whole bunch of samples, but also a bit of my story as to how I got into it, and then what happened over a period of time during that periods of what was happening when I was working on the Star Wars Holiday Special, what was happening when I was working on Rock and Rule and doing the Batman commercials and so on and so forth, and then leading up to what my personal projects are now with my comic book work and where I'm going forward with it. So
go ahead.
No, and so the comic book work is more in terms of trying to. I know that there is a need that I can very easily fulfill, and that is for all ages work from 12 years old and under and down. That's the kind of work that I feel that I can actually do. It's the kinds of the stories and the actions and taking what I know as in terms of storytelling from my years in animation, doing this work and then putting it in and presenting it with new characters, for comic books and doing it, through crowdfunding.
All right. Well, obviously we've got it up here. The link is in the chat. I appreciate the mods dropping the link in there in case anybody wants to check it out, because you can get part or support this project for as little as $10 here. You can get the assistant animator and $20 here for the journeyman animator, 40. Everything's really reasonably. The most expensive thing you got here is only $60. You can support these creators by, like I said, it doesn't cost that much to just drop a few shekels if you are what they say, spend a little coin on your Witcher, as they say.
Well, the thing that people still have to remember is that I'm, the upper tier of the $40 tier. You get an original Boba Fett sketch by me, and that's basically what I was doing with that. So it's a particular. It's a particular pose that I'm doing for everybody, but it's a pencil sketch on animation paper, punched and autographed by me.
Let's see, I might need another mod. And let me like Johnny, I'm gonna make you a mod. Johnny in Cleveland, I'm gonna make you a mod. Need more people dropping links. So let me put you to work. So okay, Johnny, you can look in the description. There's a link to both of these projects. I see Tinfoil Hat Nick in the chat. He's been dropping the link in there. So yeah, Johnny, help us out if you don't mind, and help us, as we try to promote some of these projects and talk to these amazing animators. But yeah, your project obviously has a lot of nostalgia to it. John, these are, especially like you talk about like He-Man, Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, these are things I grew up with. I saw someone, there's an artist I follow on Instagram, and he was doing commissions on blank sketch covers, and he posted the picture. He said this is it was the first time in like his career. He'd been working for like 20 years doing comic book art, and someone commissioned him to draw Brave Star on their sketch cover. And I immediately thought of you. I was just like, Brave Star, because I used to watch that show all the time. I was like, yeah, it's just let me see. But matter of fact, because so what we've got rough sketch up. Let me switch over. Let me go over and show Joseph's project, the very promising Slaughter Squad. And yeah, man, this is and one thing I really loved about this is he created a little quick animation thing, which I'm gonna play here. I really love what he did here, but I'm sure you probably yeah. But John, I'm sure you probably haven't seen this yet. So let me get it going.
Definitely not for the 12 and under crowd.
Oh no, it's definitely
raunchy.
It's
bloody.
Yeah. But let's get into it. Let's see how you get down on Slaughter Squad. And it's supposed to be playing right now, and it's not. I'm like, oh, okay. Let me try it again.
Click it harder. All right.
You sure you want to go back in there? A bull's gotta do what a bull's gotta do. Eat hot lead, suckers! Huh? What? Mess with the bull, get the horns! Shit just got real. Who the hell are you? I'm 100% Psycho Beefcake. Think you can handle it, Susie? Fuck you, asshole. Fuck you, asshole! Your horns are strong. That's what she said. Why would she say that? Let's burn this motherfucker. Hell yeah! Your mama would be proud. Mama? Kilgore. You're dead meat.
All right, I have to admit, it's a little nerve-wracking having an old master looking at this. A little self-conscious here.
Oh man, but that I loved it. It grabbed me when I saw it. I was like, "This is great, man!" I just and you did this all yourself, right?
Yeah.
How long? What? That's your copyright. What? 2013? Is that what it said?
Yeah, I did that in 2013.
How long did it take you to do this?
Took me roughly 6 months. Yeah. So I wrote it, I storyboarded, I designed everything. I animated it. I did the backgrounds. I did the voices.
I understand that. I appreciate all the work that's there. Yeah, it's kind of like, you call it Kilgore. I was thinking this is reminiscent of Kill Bill, so you could call it Kill Bull.
Kill Bull. Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, I'm assuming.
I'm sorry. I was going to.
No, go ahead.
What program? What were you using to do?
I used Harmony.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not familiar with this program.
It's pretty standard nowadays for TV animation. It was Flash for a long time, and now most of the studios are using Harmony.
Yeah, they're using it. It was Toon Boom Harmony. That. Yeah, I still have the old Toon Boom studio.
Oh. Yeah, I have an older version myself. They recently updated, rebranded everything. I'm still using a 6-year-old version. I haven't updated in a while. It's not cheap.
No, but that's one thing why I refuse to use the I have the option of not going into that subscription stuff. My Photoshop is still Photoshop 5.
Oh yeah, it still gets the job done.
PS2, that's what I've got. On an old computer there, and other programs on the other. I mean, my studio is kind of like a starship, because I've got 3 different monitors before 3 different stages of computers.
Nice.
But that's good. I mean, great. I mean, all of that effort. Wow, yeah, that's an amazing amount of effort, and what have you. So
that's why I didn't do a sequel. I was planning on it, and then when I finished, I was like, "Oh man, this is too much to do on your own."
Comic books are easier.
Yeah. I had so many stories I wanted to tell, and if I was gonna animate it all by myself, it would take 100 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. That's why I'm trying to do comic books also, but and that makes it a lot easier to at least have a decent schedule. If you can, if you stick with it, then you can at least produce something that doesn't take 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing I wanted to ask John, because I always loved Dragon's Lair, right? So, I don't know how you came onto that project, and how hands-on was Don Bluth? That's what I was wanting. I was wanting to ask about Don Bluth.
Oh yeah.
I was a big fan. Secret of NIMH and stuff I love that stuff. So I don't know if you get to a certain level, if you're influenced, then you just have a bunch of people working under you, and your name just goes on the project, and you don't really Did Don actually work on Dragon's Lair?
Oh
Or
yeah,
was it just
he did all the storyboarding.
Oh really? Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, he did all of the storyboarding. He would give us the beginning and ends. Sometimes like about two boards, but these scenes were very small, very short. I mean, there many times there were only 12-frame scenes, half a second long, or maybe there'd be a second long.
Yeah.
A long one would be, what you feel like you really can sink your teeth into it was maybe about 2.5 to 3 seconds long. So,
right, it was like there was like an intro and then like an ending, but in between that was like really short. Yeah.
Yeah, because you had to, where you had to enter and exit. As long as you had that, then you can play around a little bit with it. But because of not enough time,
that was like a technical limitation, right? So the laser
extreme technical limitation for that. But the timing of the exposure sheets, that's what made the difference between making it or not. Like, everything had to be like when, things would be popping and, things somebody would try and get you, and just to get by, you could be like a frame off there. And so you had to make sure that within that one frame you were missed, like when, so all of that had to be timed because you had different elements. Sometimes it'd be on twos, some on ones, that sort of thing. I don't know if they still use exposure sheets at all, but
not really.
Okay.
But we do. I mean, we use the terminology still.
Okay.
But yeah, I've only used like an X sheet once in my whole like 11 years of animation, and it was all off anyways, and we had to throw it out.
Well, the one thing when I was asked about Dragon's Lair, because there's a couple of YouTube channels that take these old video games like Dragon's Lair, they take Space Ace and stuff, and they cut all the gameplay out, and they clip all the animation of the game together in one seamless thing. And the Dragon's Lair was it was less than half an hour.
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it wasn't that long. Dragon's Lair 2 was about
that
twice
game was
that size.
So hard, you were dying like a million times.
It
was a quarter eater.
Well, you got to see a lot of my scenes because I did a lot of death specials. I was a specialist on a lot of stuff.
That was the best part. Just watching them die.
Dirt to daring, yes.
Yeah,
because I always love that stuff. But Dragon, I loved when you had to go to Nashville to play Dragon's Lair 1. I remember when Dragon's Lair, that was the only place, no arcade in Murfreesboro had Dragon's Lair, but some of the arcades in Nashville did. So we had, and it was like, it was almost reminded me of like when we got like Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 2, there were only a couple of places here in the city that had it. And then when we would go, it would be 15, 20 guys standing in line waiting on somebody to get beaten. And it was the same way with Dragon's Lair. Like, you would go up to Nashville and I think it cost like $1 to play.
It was expensive, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't just a quarter.
Yeah.
It was at least $1. It wasn't, it was more than just 20.
It was like, I thought it was, you'd pop your quarters there because.
Yeah, but you had to pop 4 of them.
Yeah.
It costs more to play Dragon's Lair than it did to play in it, but it was still it was more than just a quarter of play. At least maybe my arcade guy was robbing us, but like I said, you go up to.
I don't know. I mean, I didn't have to deal with that.
Okay, yeah. Some people in the chat, check it. Yeah, that's $1. It costs more than that. Yeah,
chat confirms.
Yeah. Okay. Justin McClure says his was $75. It costs more than a quarter though. That was the thing.
Okay.
But people were happily there was no game like Dragon's Lair. There was nothing like it.
Yeah.
And so to actually, like I said, there would be a crowd around the machine. Mm-hmm. That's one thing I miss about, having the home arcade, having Xbox and PlayStations and Nintendo Wii's and all this Switches and all these different systems out. I miss going, because back in the day when I was a kid, people could still smoke in these places. You go into like a Showbiz Pizza, which is Chuck E. Cheese now, and there would be people in there smoking and drinking, and be a bunch of older kids, and there's something that's missing. Some people would be over there bowling, and people would be shooting pool and everything. And it was just something. There's that atmosphere, the ambiance. It was just
it's kind of coming back with the barcade thing.
Yeah. But I missed that growing up, man.
It's not the same, yeah.
Order you a couple of slices of pie, you go over there and it's like, had to beg my mom. But, so I'll be like, okay, do I want to drop my entire dollar into this machine to play Dragons? And I wasn't, I was like 7 or something. I suck. So it's literally, I drop it in, play 3 men, die, and then I'd have to get another $1. And it would suck. And mom would be like, all right, you got $5. That's all I'm giving you.
Yeah.
And that would be the deal. And I would not, but matter of fact, one time I remember there was an older kid there and he looked like he was pretty good, but he ran out of money. And I gave him $1 just so because I wanted to see more of the game. And so I put my quarters in and let him play, but he actually got through, he entered in. He was actually doing, got on that little chessboard and stuff. I was just blown away. And we had a crowd of kids just sitting there around the machine, just like, he's like having to ride on one of the chess pieces and all that. And, it's like, oh my God. It was just, we were so excited because I knew if I played it, even though I tried to play, I was horrible.
You start back from square one on that. You're always having to, you die and you have to start all over again.
It was brutal, man.
Yeah.
Well, the 80s were a different time. I'm sure.
I missed. I love the old school difficulty, actually. Yeah, I don't mind getting my ass kicked and trying again. You get a sense of achievement, satisfaction.
But I got a little older and Dragon's Lair 2 came out. Mm-hmm. And that they were charging at least $1.50 on that one. It was like $1.50 to play it. But again, it was getting and it was even better. It looked like the animation was on an either higher level.
It was
than the first one.
It was a higher level. I mean,
and the technology got better, right?
Well, it wasn't so much the technology because we were doing it at the same time. You start at Dragon's Lair, and then Space Ace, and then we went right into Dragon's Lair 2. Okay, I worked worked a lot of the death scenes, but I also worked on stuff like the Jabberwocky chase. Yeah, I worked on that. I worked on a bunch of there were a lot of monsters and what have you, but that's different time. They didn't finish. Here's the inside story on that. We were in the middle of production for Dragon's Lair 2 when the studio went bankrupt.
Ooh.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's one of the I put it my least favorite part of working on that production. The place went bankrupt, and I had moved my wife and myself from Canada to Los Angeles to work full time on there. So I went from Toronto. We packed up everything, got my wife her card so that she could be here, and then the thing went bust.
Yeah, it sucks.
Financial shenanigans and all of that kind of stuff. That
was around the time it was like a game bubble.
It's all show business. It's all business, and that's what happened.
I think it was like a video game bubble. It was like a bunch of studios went out of business around that time, right? A lot of shenanigans going on.
Well, it wasn't. These were popular. This was Dragon's Lair, Space Ace were very popular. It was the money wasn't coming in for them. All the other places, I'm sure, the games. There was a bubble, but it was like saying, it wasn't about the the quality or the demand for it. It was the financial partnership between, Bluth Studios and whoever was doing the technology part of it. There were shenanigans there, and so
right.
Just went belly up. I mean, I remember you got your letter, and everybody just that was it. So, wow. So that's what happened on that. So, there was a period of time that they needed to take it to finish the game. I don't know how much more there was left to do, because we had done pretty much all of it by the time that happened. But then you have to go to ink and paint, and you've got to do all the other technical stuff.
Yeah, they digitize everything.
Yeah. Well, it was laser. It was laser.
Right.
So you had to put that all together, and so that's a different thing, different story.
It's interesting though, because sometimes I'll look on it. I don't know why I look for weird things on eBay. I guess trying to find recapture my lost youth. But you can find sometimes there'll be a actual working Dragon's Lair game with the laser disc seems to be the problem, because some people have the cabinets but the laser disc doesn't work or something like that. And, you need to, if you can find one that actually works, or maybe some people can fix them and get it back restored. But you find the system and it's restored. I mean, there's several $1,000s from what I've seen on eBay. So
that's I mean, it is. I find it funny that it's considered to be antique in terms of relationship of what the stuff is, and it's just. To me, an antique is something that's older than I am, but I'm older.
I think I saw a Laserdisc once when I was a kid.
First movie I watched on Laserdisc was Popeye with Robin Williams. That was anybody who wasn't that Barry's? That was Barry Levinson? No, I can't remember who directed that, but
I don't remember. But I remember it had the chick from The Shining as olive oil.
I am what I am. I was like, one of my mom's friends had bought a laser disc, and she only had like 3 discs, and one of them was Popeye, and she threw it in, and I mean, it put it in, and the picture clarity and everything was just beautiful, and I was just like, wow. When we got a VCR, I was excited, but that
going from VHS to that was
and then there was a buddy of mine. I went to his house. He managed to get the Star Wars on Laserdisc. And when Lucasfilm released, what was that, around 86 or 87 or so? It's like Lucasfilm released Star Wars on Laserdisc. People went crazy because you can still find some of them are like collectible. You can find them on eBay, and but man, that picture quality was incredible, and I was blown away by all that stuff. So I was just.
And it's before he started meddling with it. It's the theatrical cut.
Yeah, it's the theatrical. I think some things that were improved in because he especially the first one, he's retweaked that one like 3 or 4 times. There's probably he should have gotten out, maybe him selling to Disney. I would say him selling to Disney wasn't the worst thing, but they ruined Star Wars movies, so it is horrible. Yeah. But he kept going in, and he's talked about this in interviews where he would look at the movies and he couldn't look at what he did right. Everything he saw was mistakes. Everything on the screen was like, okay, that one I didn't cut right there. I didn't cut. So he ended up in a perpetual cycle where he kept tweaking things, and a lot of the things he tweaked where he put the alien language on the control panels and stuff like that. I thought those were good improvements, but then there were other things where I was just like, okay, you're going a little crazy here.
Yeah, you got a little caught up.
Yeah, I think though that you've got to at some point, even as an artist, why are you doing this? That's the statement. The statement I have is you're doing something else. Why put your effort into something? It's like
Right. Yeah.
Painted something. It was the best that you could do. Leave it. Let it go. Let it go. But still, just do something else. You could see that
into the next thing. Yeah.
You could do that. My thing was that learn how to do story and editing. Which my understanding is his editor was his wife.
Okay.
I think
so. Yeah.
And then when she left that relationship, that's when he took over completely, and he doesn't have the capacity. He doesn't have the real being able to step back and look at what shouldn't be there. You could say a lot of things, and that's another thing about story that we all have to deal with. You like video games? Well, there was a story. It was you against such and such. So there was definitely something. Or in a comic book, it's you, or it's who you're associating with. Or in a video, or in a movie, all of this stuff you have to associate with people, with major characters. Otherwise, all you're doing is observing. And I think one of the things that I found is there was too much of effects in the second trilogy of 1, 2, and 3. It was just overwhelming to me, and I
think a lot of people felt like that.
No, that preoccupation with like trying to get things perfect. You get hung up on that. You're just never going to get anywhere. It's like just say it's done and just make the next thing better.
Yeah,
just move on. Yeah,
move on.
He's been asked this question.
I see some of the Comicsgate people like going back and kind of doing stuff like that. They talk about redrawing, rewriting parts, and it's like just finish it, make the next thing good. Don't try and make this first thing perfect.
Yeah, I think I got a little too attached to brand, and I kept I see things like, okay, let me see, can't we get this fixed or tweak this a little bit or whatever, and try to get everything, But people have been waiting so long. I want to make sure that when it goes to the home, I honestly, when I look at it now, I feel like this is the best that we could do on this project. I have thrown it to the winds now. Yeah. I am able to let it go. But boy, I was looking at everything with a fine-tooth comb. And then when we start going into the print file stage, I started noticing. I was like, how did I miss that? It's that's one of the things. I was like, it was weird. I was like, how did that happen? I was like, wait a minute, I've looked at this page 1,000 times and never noticed. And then we had to go in and fix something else and everything. It's just, but like I said, it's the way it is now. I'm happy with it.
I'm sorry about all the noise. My neighbors are crazy. It's
LA.
Had the freaking garbage truck going, and there's like someone's getting towed. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Well, I wanted to let me see, because John, I particularly wanted to ask you, because I remember when we talked last time, you had mentioned working with Brad Bird, and I'm a big fan of his. It's like incredible. So like, when did you work with him?
Well, I did. What you're remembering is I was going to work on his version of the Spirit with him and Jerry Reese.
They
were developing that for the Spirit, and it never came to fruition. But I talked to them about working on it, and I'd finished working on Rock and Rule, and I was ready to come back to the States. So one of the friends one person that Brad Bird knew was working at Nelvana with me, Chuck Gamage, and they know each other, Jerry Reese, and they knew each other from schools and what have you. And anyway, so I contacted Brad and said, I'm coming to LA, if I can, stop by, and in San Francisco, and he was in Marin, and San Rafael rather, and So I did a sample scene for flipping. I went over, showed him the stuff, showed him my reel from Rock and Rule with Cindy Schlepper and Quad Hole and Mylar, those characters. And so we had a conversation about that. I was there. I met him, we talked about it. I said, they gave me an offer. They said, okay, if you are, you know, if this goes, yeah, well, I'd be on that Spirit, on the Will Eisner Spirit, you know, animated.
Yeah, he was still alive then too. That's why I was.
Yes, he was. Yeah,
he
so,
was still alive.
But unfortunately, at the time, you're talking about 1983. Okay, so I had sent him. I had contacted Brad and had the meeting with him. Then they said, well, if it happens, it happens. I said, okay. But then I sent my reel out I worked with Bluth, and so I wound up being at Bluth's. You know,
well, that ended up working out.
So that's the connection that I had with Brad. Later on, he asked me to come on to a Family Dog.
Oh,
you know, but I didn't. I was too busy. I just couldn't do that. He was trying to gather what he considered to be the best animators, you know, at that time, which is like 80. I think it was 85 for Amazing Stories.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know, the Spielberg show. But I was really too busy, you know, to get onto that. And I knew that if you fluff on a freelance job like that, you take on too much, you know, you start getting a really bad name, and all you're doing is for the money, and that's no good.
Well, you know, the reason I thought about the Spirit, because, you know, they ended up doing what was around 2008. They did kind of a funky Spirit movie, kind of tried to mix a little animation in. Samuel L. Jackson was in there playing. It was weird.
Yeah.
Frank Miller directed it.
Frank Miller. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, and it ended up losing. They spent like $60-70 million on it, and it only made about like 39.
Really hot stuff after that other movie.
Well, Sin City
came out.
So 300. Yeah, Frank Miller at that. Yeah, he was 300 blue. You know, but that was Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder took 3. I still love 300. I think 300 is a great movie. I think it looks incredible. And then you know, they did the first Sin City with, you know, him and what's the guy?
Mickey Rourke.
No, I'm talking about the director guy.
Oh, the director. Is it Rodriguez?
Yeah.
Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah. Robert Rodriguez, and he did that. And then the second one was awful though. The second Sin City was awful.
I didn't even watch it.
Oh God, it's so bad, dude. Because they couldn't get one of Michael Clark Duncan had died, and so he couldn't play the same part. Or something. It was, man, that movie was so bad, and they had to switch people out, and
that's a shame.
Oh God, man. Yeah, I just I was like, they waited too long to make. They were supposed to start making the movie pretty quickly because they had like Angelina Jolie attached and all this other stuff. And then they were like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that movie." And then they brought, what was it? I can't remember. Was it Eva Mendes or one of those? They brought in someone to play the part Angelina Jolie was going to play. And like I said, some of the actors weren't. It was horrible. It was not very good. But the first one. I own the first Sin City on DVD. I loved it. I still think it's a great movie. Nice little blend of like animation, CGI, and real live action and stuff. A lot of green screen work on that because you can, just for that scene
where he kicks him down the well. That was just you know.
Well, they have like 3 or 4 different directors' commentaries on the DVD, and one of them lets you see it like with the green screen. Like they've got a track where it kind of shows where the special effects and stuff, and then they, you know, like Quentin Tarantino, you know, he directed like one of the big scenes in Sin City. You know, it's like the whole thing. You know, I know him and Robbie have been friends for quite a while or whatever, but yeah, I love, I love the first one. The second one was a crime against film. I really didn't. So yeah, when I wish that John had gotten to work with Brad Bird on that, I suspect.
Oh, that would have been, yeah. I really, I for all the projects that never came about, I really wish that would have been one that I could have worked on, because it was. But at the time, no one thought, the money people did not look. Didn't think of that animation 2D, that animation features were viable.
Unfortunately, yeah.
You know, it's in 1983. People hadn't. You forget that there was a long stretch of time, you know, before animation, you know, featured. The one that sort of started getting things out of the Disney. Well, first of all, they didn't think anybody other than Disney could make money in feature films. Okay, because up to that point, you could literally count almost all the North American animated features that had been created in the entire history of motion pictures on all your digits, and maybe some other friend. You know, that's it. I mean, there weren't maybe about 20 to 30 at the most up until that time, and only all of them were Disney, pretty much. You know, so that was the thought. I said an independent film being produced, you know, that was outside of Disney. There was no way. The thing that made it, American Tail, got.
Oh yes,
and that's
that movie.
That's 85.
Oh man, that first one, yeah, the first American Tail was. I remember now. I saw someone in the chat said that their school actually had a Laserdisc machine. My school did not have a laser. My school did not have a Laserdisc machine. We had a VHS, but they had some kind of system where you would have to. They had a VCR monitor system, and you had to go to the library and, you know, put the tape in, and it would stream through the whole school. The videotape, whatever was playing on the VHS machine in the library would play. And they had went out and like Blockbuster and rented an American Tail. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, it was almost at the end of the school, and we got to watch. I got to watch the American. I was like, man, I'm a sucker for animation. Like, I'm seeing Fievel and the raindrops are coming and everything. It was so beautiful, and I was like, wow, this movie looks incredible. I'm an old school animation head. That's why I was so attracted to like anime and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of the, you know. A lot of stuff like Ninja Scroll and all those you know, all those Japanese cartoons I used to watch, like Gotcha Man and all this, you know, or what do they call it? What's Gotcha Man in America? It's not G-Force, is it? No, it's like, is that G-Force? Because I was like, I know G-Force, they call it G-Force. G-Force is also called Battle of the Planets, but it has some other, because like I know my European friends go, no, that's Battle of the Planets, mate. And I'm like, we call it G-Force. I used to come home and you know, I come home and they would play Battle of the Planets. I used to, you know, the Fiery Phoenix and stuff. They call it G-Force here, but when you look on YouTube and you can find both. You can type it in and it'll come up with the European intro, which is Battle of the Planets. And you could also see G-Force. Because I was just like, I love that stuff. I used to watch Transor Z, Voltron, you know, was it Starship Yamato, Robotech? Some of these are on Amazon Prime, by the way. I know you can watch what's like Ronin Warrior and stuff. That's one thing I love about. And I love that style.
Yeah. Animation kind of stalled in the West, but Japan like kind of kept the flame going.
But I noticed they keep using it's some of the same stuff that you would see in like Thundercats and He-Man, where okay, it's time to transform. So they just keep reusing the exact same scene and stuff. Yeah. Little cheat code.
It's the only way to really do. I mean, you've got to do that, especially when the budgets are so thin. You know, you can't do that. I mean, but if you do it correctly, then it makes sense. You know, I mean, I saw reuse. Okay, animation is reuse is not the sole providence of or an idea of animation of, say, of Terry Toons or Hanna-Barbera. I was watching. Now there's a streaming channel called FilmRise, and they show old Hopalong Cassidy movies.
Oh.
Right. I mean, the William Boyd stuff and whatnot. I mean, there's the whole range of them, all of them. You know, he did about 61 of them. So they do this whole thing, and I've seen film, clips of cowboys getting ready and getting ready to go and charge after the rustlers and what have you. And they're using the same clips of everybody getting on the horse and whatnot from a movie 3 years earlier they had done. I mean, they just, if you really need it, that's the way of making reuse. But the thing about it is we're so used to seeing things, in this general amount of, like, you can watch 13 hours of the show, one season, in 2 days, or just do a 24-hour marathon. Whereas Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, all those shows, you'd only see it like once a month. Wouldn't see. You wouldn't see. They ran the Popeyes. There were like only 12 5-minute shorts done a year of Popeyes. So the same thing with Bugs Bunny.
They play them during the movies, right? That's what my mom used to tell me. Like, it's like Three Stooges shorts or something. You'd see, you want to see the Three Stooges, you had to go to the movies.
Yeah.
Bugs Bunnies in a row. You don't get the same kind of condensation. Just making these characters. You're watching an entire 5-year worth of work. And they run it maybe in 12 weeks.
Mm.
You know that, Joseph. How TV shows. I mean, He-Man is the first one that did 65 half-hour shows for a season, because they were running them once a day, 5 days a week for 13 weeks.
Yeah. It's a little different now because of Netflix. Like, everything's. You just binge watch everything, so you got to have all the content like ready to go.
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me get this question from the chat, because Amanda Lucy says, "Was Land Before Time a Disney movie?" I'm pretty sure that was a Don Bluth. They made like 5 or 6 of them, right?
Yeah.
That was Don Bluth. Yeah, but I'm a big fan of Don Bluth. I think he's 82 now. He's still with us, thank God. Let me see. Comics Legend has a question for John. He says, I understand Ruff Sketches work from the 70s and 80s, but has Mr. Celestri worked on any art projects in the recent years?
Well, basically, it's my own projects that I'm working on. As I said, the comic books that I'm developing for what I want to get out there, and there was not a lot of call for 70-year-old or 65-year-old or 60-year-old animator, in Hollywood. Basically that's, so there was a fair amount of ageism and just, you're not part of the crew, and that's how you get your work. I mean, I know that there's a lot of 25 and 30-year-old, producers, directors that don't want somebody looking over their shoulder and saying, well, what do you mean you want to do it that way? I know you could do it that way, but I know it doesn't work. So, it doesn't matter. They just don't want it. So it's best, you just go and you say, okay, my time is done over in this section. And that's why I'm glad for crowdfunding, being able to do my own work.
And for forums like this that allow you to talk to so many people all at once. I love this stuff, because this is I love, we've got like 50 people in the chat, and this is really cool, man. Actually, I know when you were here before, we touched on this because we started talking about Captain Marvel, Shazam, and it really makes me one of the things that kind of made me think about it again is when you was talking about like these collections of old like Looney Tunes and stuff like that. But when we spoke the last time, we started talking about when they released this older material in modern times, they start editing everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big proponent of releasing it as it was.
Yeah.
I know, even movies like a movie like Song of the South, which is banned over here and stuff like that, I believe those movies should be restored and everything should be put out as intended. It shouldn't, I mean, you can put a little thing at the beginning of the movie or something, but those are masterpieces. And like a lot of those old Bugs Bunny shorts or Heckle and Jekyll, Woody Wood, all that stuff, Tom and Jerry. It was kind of sad when I was sitting there with my niece and my nephews, and we were watching. Their mom had bought this DVD of old Looney Tune cartoons, and there was like, it was one about World War II, and they were like blurring out the swastikas and all this. It just, it kind of stuff irritated me. I was like, when I was a kid in the late 70s and 80s, they would show that stuff on television, and now when you get them, you can't.
They're trying to rewrite history. It's
yeah.
That is the problem. It comes from sort of a wanting to control, the subject. I mean, basically, you got to remember World War II. People, and this is the reality. The German, Nazism and the Japanese were trying to take over the world, and people were dying in concentration camps. So you can't. It's to be political when you're fighting for your life. You can't have niceties. You can't say, "Well, I'm sorry, it's not politically correct," and we're having is a is a political discourse. No, we've got somebody who's trying to eat you, and you are the enemy. And the only way you can motivate them is by not making them, human. Unfortunately, because they do not consider us their enemies as human. So you've got a problem there. Now we've got, here we are in a completely different, context, but the cartoons were propaganda. They were a way of saying, okay, we're making fun of stuff. Okay, we're trying to make some levity, with it, but at the same time, you still have to show the swastika. Well, what is it? What are you doing with the show to make it seem like it's okay to take over the historical significance of what was going on at the time? A case in point is in Hogan's Heroes. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Frenchie. He actually was a member. He was in the concentration camps in World War II. He lived that, and he was able to make fun of it. As the actor himself, and he said, "No, we're trying to, there is that." I mean, so. My mom lived through World War II in Italy, having to deal with the Nazis. She lived and she grew up and was a young woman in Italy, and she and her sisters hid guns under their skirts to get them past the Nazis, to be able to to the SS, and to get them to the to the partisans. This is the kind of thing, you cannot make a comment about history in the past if you're from the safety of never having experienced danger.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So, I'm not going to cry a tear if somebody feels hurt about, I'm sorry, you shouldn't be saying these things. I'm sorry. Take the historical context.
And that's why I wanted to bring that back up, because I thought we had a really great conversation last time. Because one of the things I brought up was the DC was they had like one of the master editions of Shazam and the Monster Society of Evil and all this, and then they was like, oh, it's right. They had done all the work. They had digitally cleaned everything up, and they had this beautiful. It was going to be hardbound, all this kind of. And I was looking forward to buying it, and then someone said, "Oh, that's racist." And then they decided not to put it out, and I was like, "Are we just
come on?"
Yeah, that. Yeah, I thought it was a little weird.
I'm sorry. You know, I have no respect for anyone who will not look at reality and allow historical. Okay, you know what? We should not have had any gladiator films where people were being killed.
Can't watch. I've heard some people saying that movies like Gone with the Wind should be censored and stuff like that, and I'm like, why? I don't get it. There's at least 7. I saw a list of like 7 banned animations. What was it? What was the one? Snow White and the.
It's Cold Black and the Seven Dwarfs.
That's what it is. Yeah, you can find a lot of these banned cartoons are available on YouTube, but it would be nice to have them like fully restored. And because, like I said, I'm an animation head. I like buying stuff like that. Listen,
I would. What is considered to be racist stuff in, like, say, Cold Black and the Seven Dwarf, or in Song of the South, you know, or any of that sort of thing, you see far worse on music videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like on BET or something.
Yeah, anything. I mean, whatever it is, you know, that it is far worse on that. And so I really have I can't suffer fools too much.
But like you said, I just believe that some of these are important works. It's
history,
yeah, and it's just I get nervous because I'll hear of a library that's refusing to stock a certain version of Mark Twain, or you know this kind of thing. There's companies that are out there like sanitizing Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, and they were like, okay, well, this is a sanitized version of it, and I was like, why would you touch that? Leave it as it was intended.
Yeah, that's insane.
That drives me crazy. So I don't know. This is something that I think about all the time because, you know, you look back and what's going to be. Oh, Superman! Superman was over in World War II battling the Japanese. We can't show that anymore. You know, like that kind of thing.
Captain America? Should we not just ban everything and then just, you know? So I mean, that's why I do not understand why Red Skull is Hydra. To me, he was.
Yeah, they got scared on that. Yeah, they really was like, oh well, Red Skull's wasn't really a Nazi. He was a science officer, and you see now, even in modern time, even though he got a little bit more popular again when they did the Captain America movie, they're still kind of afraid to use him in certain instances because they're like, well, he was a Nazi. I don't know about that.
He's a bad guy. You're not supposed to. You're supposed to be bad. Like, come on.
Well, Captain Marvel had a villain actually called Captain Nazi that you never see Captain Nazi anymore. Yeah. Captain Nazi was like one of his strongest villains. And it's like people that know about Shazam, Captain Marvel, old school, when it was like Fawcett Comics and stuff, he used to battle Captain Nazi. It's like the internet's been scrubbed to this guy. You have to like really dig to find it. It doesn't, they don't mention Captain Nazi, you know, modern DC that owns the rights to Shazam, Captain Marvel. They would definitely not be featuring, or if they do have Captain Nazi, they would change his name to something else. You know what I'm saying? It wouldn't be the same. Yeah. But he used to battle Captain Nazi. And a lot of people don't know that. You know?
Yeah. That's how Captain Marvel Jr., that is part of his origin story, is he was almost killed by Captain Nazi.
And then,
you know, that's how you started, you know, how that the Captain Marvel Jr. character came about. Yeah. So, you know, but once again, you know, it's all yeah. Okay.
And this is only happening in the West. Like in other countries, they're like, what is wrong with you people? Why are you so offended by everything?
Well, it's just to be, it's the political correctness is just crazy.
Yeah, and
That's like, it's being nice, having understanding what you should be doing is different from saying this is what was going on back then. And you can, it's like 1984 Brave New World, changing, scrubbing history clean to make it seem like to fill your agenda. So that's,
I think we're more leaning in America anyways, we're more leaning towards Brave New World. It's like people don't know that they're being controlled even.
Mm-hmm.
You're just kind of sleepwalking through everything.
Well, that's something I would actually kind of like to ask you, Joseph, because you've worked on a cartoon like Rick and Morty, which obviously is not politically correct. Rick and Morty is a little out there. And I watched Animals. I watched Animals on HBO. That cartoon's wild.
It's really weird. Like, so I've been working in adult animation mostly, and that's one of the places where they're still doing 2D adult animation and like children's stuff. But for adult animation, like you would think, they're trying to be irreverent. They're trying to push the envelope, but there's definitely some unspoken rules. There's certain lines you can't cross, and especially after 2016, you have to be like, everyone's like, you have to be really careful. Like there's certain topics that you can't touch. Like South Park just got in trouble recently.
Yeah, I saw they pissed off a bunch of people.
But like they're untouchable. They don't give a shit. They can.
But they were making fun of like trans athletes battling male. It was something like that. Because I know that's a hot subject. Like because I do a podcast called the Wrestling Council, and we do it. It's 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time each and every Thursday between myself and the S&B Network. We rotate it. But one of the things that we've been talking about is the wrestling company AEW. They allowed a transgender athlete to win their female championship. So they have a champion that was born a man that is now the women's champion. And obviously some people are like, why would you do that?
It's like, oh, people are already it's like it's fake. Now it's like even faker.
The whole thing, like I said, I feel like as we're going, people, when you said 2016, people lost their minds when the election happened. I have the stuff that I've seen online and everything. And I was like, man, Facebook is toxic. And now that we're gearing up to have another election here later in the year, I'm seeing more and more of this crap pop up on my timeline. People are fighting. And
the Bernie bros and the Bloomberg bros are going at it now. The Yang gang is defeated. They're decimated, demoralized.
My brother's
bloodbath.
My brother's mother-in-law, she's like hardcore liberal, and she's like she sends me all this crazy like anti-Trump stuff, and I'm like, I've been conservative for over 2 decades. I'm sitting there, and I think she's hoping that they can bring me back. I've been conservative for over 2 decades. I can't help it. It's just the way I mean, but they're not Southerners, and so I don't know. It just, everything's getting weird now. It's just like you can't even. I would just like to, whether you're conservative, liberal, whatever. I would just like everybody to get along, even
it's not going to happen when the way the media works now. These media conglomerates, I mean, it's in their best interest to get everyone all amped up and fighting.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that, because basically it's a show for them. They're not doing. They are basically doing verbal, tag team wrestling. Everything has got to have a match. Everything has to be winners and losers. News is not news. It is basically entertainment content. How can we get strife going?
Yeah, and I think politics is
out
theater
there.
too.
And then how do you fill all this time? Well, you've got a fake wrestling. Basically that's what you've got there. Create your villains, create your heroes, and then say we are impartial. We're only watching, and reporting what the news is. No, it's not. If you were doing that, you wouldn't have more than a half hour or an hour a day to fill, and that would be it.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, let me see. Okay, so I got this question from Goldschlager. He says, Joseph, are you able to elaborate on what lines you are not able to cross? I am curious as to what they censor and what the environment is like in those companies.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's like, social justice, the social justice narrative. There's kind of like this orthodoxy, what is acceptable. So like, there's just a lot of landmines, and the only safe thing that you can make fun of is like white Christian males. Normal people, like
straight white males. Yeah.
Say whatever you want about them, but if you go into any other territory, it's like, oh boy.
Well, I'll show you how crazy this is. This is part of the conversation we had in the 1970s. Okay, 1980s. We had at Filmation. I was being at Filmation. We had a book, of how you could draw, how to handle certain things, and so on and so forth. And one of them was that you couldn't have somebody look cross-eyed. You couldn't have them being, furrowing their brow too much, and you couldn't have their eyes pop out because that was too extreme. That's standards and practices.
That's Tex Avery.
You couldn't do that. You couldn't do Tex Avery. You couldn't do anything.
Tex Avery would have the eyes goggling.
Oh my goodness.
So I still have my book. I have everything. So, but that's what people go to extremes all the time because it's advertising, and so therefore they're afraid of pissing people off. Advertising. Yeah. So they do that. Whereas the cartoons of the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, and even 50s, when they were in the theater, well, they didn't have advertisers. They just did them.
Yeah.
So that was a big to do. That's a big difference. So,
and like social media is like that's another dimension. Like I remember Dan Harmon got in some hot water. He said kind of an off-color pedophile joke or something.
And it was a few years old. He had made this little video.
It was old. Yeah,
it was. They start deep diving into your past and finding stuff from like 5, 6, 7 a decade ago. It's just like Kevin Hart got in trouble for tweets that he had sent out like 9 years before.
And Neil deGrasse Tyson got in hot water. Obviously, we were talking about that last time.
Yeah, just the whole thing. It's insanity to me. And but yeah, there are clips of the Dan Harmon thing online. He was like talking to a psychiatrist. He kind of did something with a baby. I recall it was a little weird. He went a little far with it because I saw that and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he filmed that. That was crazy. But
he's kind of a weird guy. He didn't come around the studio too much, so I can't speak too much about him. But the other guy, Roiland, he's really cool. I like Roiland, Justin Roiland.
He, like I said, he did something with a baby. It was weird. God, this has been a fun conversation. I've enjoyed having you both on. I guess we're nearing the finish line. I'd like to let you guys maybe speak your piece. John, you go first. Again, tell us about Ruff Sketch and other things that you're working on, and then Joseph, you can have the floor.
Okay. Well, thanks. Basically, Ruff Sketch is you get to know who I am and my past in terms of what I've done and what I'm presently doing. That's way of introducing myself to the comic book, fans and public on the internet. And so, you know, again, it's my animation samples of what I have. I mean, they're all full-size drawings. There's 84 pages of that, so you can actually, some of them you can actually flip, like some of the Batman stuff. But you get a chance to see who I am, and then it's in preparation for when I launch my comic books, you know, in later on this year. So that's what I got so far.
All right. Well, John, you know you have a open door to come back here anytime, brother. Just let me know, and I'll be happy to have you on. Let me switch over to Joseph, and Joseph, please, you know, talk about Slaughter Squad and all that good stuff.
Yeah, Slaughter Squad is like something I've been wanting to do for a long time. It's going to be a lot of fun, blood, guts, guns, and if you like Ren and Stimpy, you can't beat this meat. Go check it out. And yeah, thanks for having me on. It's good meeting you, John.
Good to meet you, Joseph.
And yeah, man, God, I can't tell you, this is better than I had dreamed. This was great, fun, awesome conversation. The chat's been really involved, and I thank you, all of you that have been out there watching. Please make sure you hit those like buttons and subscribe if you're not a subscriber already. We want you here. Join us. You know, I try to feature creators such as this all the time. You know, try to stream a few times a week, hey man, it's you know, maybe a few art streams here and there when I can trick Kanan into coming on and drawing or something like that. So man, my thanks, of course, to the great John Celestri and Joseph King for joining us here today. As always, you can hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and right here on this YouTube channel. Everywhere is at Akari Press. Stay tuned. A couple days from now, I'm going to be launching Way of the Gun. Hopefully that'll be fun. See you guys later. I'm out.